Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Dear students, welcome back to our sessions with the subject Human Resource Management. In today's subject here, we will talk about the strategic human resource management. Now, when we talk about human resource management, we usually talk about the functions of human resource management. However, before we start talking about the functions of the human resource management and the practices, we need to discuss what strategies are implemented in this department and to what extent these strategies are important to the company's strategies. So here we have the following objectives as you can see here. So the first one is we will outline the steps in the strategic management process. This is actually the first point because we're talking about strategies. And then we will talk about the different company-wide competitive strategies. So we have different levels of strategies. So we first talk about the overall corporate strategies, and then we will talk about the strategies adopted by the functions, different departments, and we will talk about the strategies of the human resource management and to what extent can such strategies support the other strategies. Finally, we will talk about the strategy-oriented human resource management system and the reason why it is important in the company. So according to these objectives, we have the following 3 points: strategic management process, the company-wide and competitive strategy, and the strategy-oriented human resource management system. So here, we start with the first one, what a strategy is. Actually, in order to talk about a strategy, we usually talk about a course of action. What we mean by a course of action is the kind of action that will be taken by the company in order to reach a given goal or a given objective set by the company. So in order to achieve this goal, we need to have a plan, which is a course of action, which is referred to as a strategy. And then we have the strategic plan. So a strategic plan here, how an organization intends to match its internal strengths and weaknesses on the one hand, with its external opportunities and threats on the other hand, to maintain a competitive advantage. The point here, when we come up with a strategy, it must be somehow the kind of strategy which we can come up with a competitive advantage. So this is the kind of thing that we will be using when we compete in the market. So that is why we say it's a kind of set of actions in a plan, and this plan is actually set so that the company can design its own competitive advantage, which somehow enable the company to compete and dominate the market. And then we have the strategic management here, which is the process of identifying and executing the organization's mission, and that is by matching its capabilities with the demands of its environment. So it goes like this. We start with the strategy here, which is, as we said before, course of action, but actually this kind of course of action is set to achieve a given goal. So once this goal is clear, we will come up with a plan. And in order to make sure that our plan is actually achieved, we need to have a department or a strategic management, which is the kind of, or the business entity, the body within the company itself, which is responsible for achieving such kind of plans. Now we have vision and mission. Actually, when we talk about strategies and we talk about the corporate level objectives, we have to have a vision, and this vision must be translated into a mission as following. So the vision here, the vision is a general term or statement of an organization's intended direction that evokes emotional feelings in its members. In other words, vision is how the company visualizes itself in the future. And this kind of picture in the future somehow provokes good feelings in the employees. It motivates them to work through such kind of goals. And then we have the mission. The mission is actually what we call a translation of a vision. So once we have a vision, which is steps forward in the future, we have to have the mission, which is the means and the ways to reach this vision. So this is what we mean by mission, which spells out what the company is, what it does, and where it is headed. So actually, by doing this, we will reach the intended goal and the vision. Now we talk about the strategic management process. Step number 1, we need to define the current business and mission here. So as you said before, we have to have a goal through which other steps can follow, so that we define the kind of strategy based on such kind of goals. We cannot actually achieve the strategies without the goal being clear. That is why we talk about SMART objectives. Now step number 2, before here we achieve this strategy, we need to perform external and internal duties. Here we talk about the kind of factors. These factors are internal and external. When we talk about internal audits here, we're talking about what the company has in terms of, let us say, financial capabilities, the competencies by the employees, the brand name, the location of the business itself, the reputation, etc. So these kind of internal factors can help the companies balance its own strategy according to its own strengths. Okay, and then we have also weaknesses. Now the kind of weaknesses can also be part of the business issue. Okay, let us say some employees are not yet well trained, so we may need to set some kind of training programs so that those employees will then follow the other capable employees. So the reason why we study internal factors is that actually we we prepare, okay, employees to come up with the right behaviors, and at the same time we utilize the strength or the good points we have in the companies in our strategy. But at the same time we have also to study the external factors. Now the external factors is actually the environment where the company is actually operating. Okay, reason here we need to study external factors is that companies cannot work in an isolated environment. They have to consider the competition, the economy, the legal requirements, and other issues outside the company or the business boundary. Then we have to formulate new business and mission statements. Now based on these issues, we can come up with some kind of objectives and goals. Okay, so now we know what our weaknesses and strengths are, and we know what the opportunities and the threats are in the market, and accordingly we can set a goal. If we set a goal here, we need to have a strategy, so we talk about new mission statements. Step number 4 is translating the mission into goals, and these goals must be clear so that the company can achieve in the long run. Can also be, sometimes you can use like tactics, which are short run kind of operations that can help us achieve the plan or the strategic plan. Step number 5 is we formulate strategies to achieve the strategic goals. So here we have mission based on our analysis. So we set the goals which are clear, and then we set the strategy. Now the strategy here is actually the tool that can help us achieve our goals. In order to achieve these goals, these strategies should be adapting the kind of capability the company has, and that is why we first, step number 2, we have to do the analysis, and step number 6 here, we implement the strategy. So this is the kind of fulfillment that the company should go through in order to achieve the goals. And finally we have to evaluate the performance. Now the reason why we have to evaluate performance here is that we need to know to what extent our strategy is somehow achieving the goals, or to what extent this strategy is actually practical. So the evaluation in this process, which is step number 7 here, is very important, because sometimes while doing the action, implementing the strategy itself, we need to amend again. So some kind of actions here within the strategy may not be right. So that is why we have to go back to the actions and refine and change some tactics and operations so that the strategies get back into the track in a way to achieve our goals. So here's an example of what we mean by the analysis. We refer to it as a SWOT analysis or SWOT chart, as here. So we have strengths and weaknesses. These are the internal factors. So these are the things within the boundary of the business and because of the business itself, something that the business itself can control. So an example of the strengths here is strong research group. If we have the company sometimes may adopt some kind of researches within its research R&D section. So such kind of business entity within the company can help the company come up with creative ideas which can be implemented in the market. However, we may also have some kind of weaknesses, like for example, aging machinery, which means here this is a problem within the boundary of the business, which at the same time can somehow affect the strategy's effectiveness. So we need to study this before we set the strategy. So what should we do with such problem? Can we change these machines? Can we fix them? Can we replace them, etc.? So the point here, we need to study the strengths and weaknesses. So we study the strengths here, these points, in order to use them in our strategy. We study also the weaknesses in order to come up with a solution, especially to those fatal weaknesses, the kind of weaknesses that might really hinder or determine the level of achievement. If such kind of weaknesses are quite dangerous to the strategy, so we have to eliminate such kind of weaknesses, maybe replacing new machinery or the machines, fixing them, or buying some kind of new technology which can somehow fix this problem. Then we talk about the opportunities and the threats. These are external factors. So an example of opportunities here, expanding in the market here. For example, China and the Chinese markets. So when we talk about an opportunity, it is something external that the company somehow can use, which somehow accelerate the success of the strategy. Meaning here, if you have an example, if the company has a 10%, let us assume this is a goal of a company to achieve in a given year. So the goal is set like this. We have to increase the sales by 10%. So what kind of opportunities, what kind of strategies we may adopt to achieve this 10%? The company might have a lot of strategies, as we will talk inshallah during this session. But the point here, when we talk about opportunities, it can be somewhere outside the market where the company actually operates. For example, why not we move to another market? And in that market, now this is a chance, which we refer to as opportunity, to move to that market. If we do that, this will facilitate our mission, okay, and that we can reach the 10% quite quickly. And the last point is about the threats. We need also to study the threats here. Now, examples of threats: the merger of two competitors to form single strong one. This is just one of the examples. Now, threats can be the competition, like you have different competitions, new entry to the market. So sometimes the competition can be very intensive. Okay, so small businesses cannot compete with bigger companies, or a company that dominates almost the whole market. Or sometimes you may have two competitors who merge into one big company, like Sony and Ericsson. Now we have Sony Ericsson, which is another company which is a result of merging. So these are examples of the result of a SWOT analysis which is done by companies. Now, what could be the relationships among strategies in multiple business firms? Here's an example of this point. Now, this is the overall corporate strategy, as you said before, the strategy that is set by the company. But remember, we're talking about human resource management. So we need to understand how human resource management is actually linked to these strategies. In order to do that, we have to understand how the strategy is first set at the level of the company itself, and then at the level of the departments and then functions here. So we have the corporate strategy. For example, business 1, competitive strategy, business 2, business 3. And this is the level of, this is the company's objectives, these are the departments, and these kind of strategies will be also set into smaller kind of strategies, functional strategies. For example, marketing department will have its own strategy. The financial department will have its own strategy. Production strategy, production department can also have its own strategy. So these strategies somehow must fit with the corporate strategy. As you said before, if the company strategy is to dominate the market or to increase the sales by 15%, now these functions will set their strategies in a way to achieve this kind of corporate level strategies. Then comes human resource management, which will support each of these functions to achieve their own strategies. That is why human resource management and the strategy of the human resource management is very important. Now, what types of strategies do we have here? Actually, as you said before, we have different levels of strategies as follow. So the first one is the corporate level strategy, or the strategies of the business itself. These strategies will be then translated into departmental strategies as follows. So we have different means. The first one is the diversification strategy. So when we talk about diversification strategy, maybe it is one of the tools that the company has in order to achieve its corporate strategies. So diversification strategy is about moving to a new market with a new product. So it's a means of developing new markets and new product. Another strategy is vertical integration strategy, and this is done by a lot of companies. If there is any possibility the company may merge with another business or the company itself here, and a vertical integration strategy will develop its own business, either backward or forward. So for example, a company that produces laptops may at the same time develop its own market to sell these products in the market. So the company will replace the distribution channels. Sometimes the company might also need to replace suppliers, which is backward integration, which means that in order to control the cost of the raw materials, companies might work in such kind of industries. So this is another kind of strategies which can help the company cut down on cost. Another strategy is the consolidation strategy, which is companies having its own alliances. So the company might either merge or develop a joint venture with another business, or the company can penetrate the market with the help of another business. Okay, as for strategic alliances, like we say here, franchising, for example. So consolidation strategy is actually one of the common tools that companies use, especially if you're talking about international business. And the last strategy is the geographic expansion strategy. So the company somehow is dominating the local market. There is a high possibility of success, this company moving into another territories. So for example, if a company is located in Sana'a and then the business is actually booming, there's another city where the demand is also high for the product this company is actually producing, then the strategy will be set to utilize such kind of opportunity and to expand geographically. Now, these are the strategies at the level of the company. Now, let us talk about the competitive strategies on a business level. Here, business level competitive strategies. We have different strategies here. So the first one is cost leadership. Now, when we refer to cost leadership here, we refer to the strategy that is set by the company to be a low price leading company in the market, providing product with reasonable prices. So such kind of strategies will help the company to expand in the market, dominate more of the market share. So using cost leadership will imply different kind of practices by human resource management. For example, in order to cut down on the cost, because we are achieving this kind of strategy, we need to train employees to handle the jobs appropriately. So it is done right from the first time. So here, this is an example of how human resource management can help and achieve such kind of strategy. Another strategy is called differentiation, which is very important. Now, this kind of strategy is very common in today's business, especially in very competitive markets. Differentiation means that the company must come up with something different, which may somehow become like a competitive advantage that other competitors will not be able to come up with. So it is something different that the company has, other competitors do not have. By having such kind of differentiation, which is of course of value to the customer, the company can achieve its strategy quite easily. So examples of differentiation strategy can be good price, high quality, huge infrastructure, new technology. So these are examples of differentiation that companies will try to come up with so that they look different from the other companies or other competitors. And the other kind of strategies is either focus or niche. We refer to it as kind of niche market. So maybe the company cannot compete in the whole market, adopting the mass product. So another solution is to focus on a very specific segment in the market, which is referred to as niche. Now, niche strategy is about the company here looking at customers with similar needs and wants, trying to meet such kind of needs and wants. So if you consider this as a strategy, we have a lot of examples of companies. For example, here, if you talk about Ferrari cars or Ferrari manufacturing industry is actually adopting a niche strategy. So they actually produce cars, but these cars are not given to everyone. So we're talking about specific people here with their needs and financial capabilities. So the company will try to serve such kind of segment in the market. But at the same time, you have different examples of niche market. We may talk about special kind of food, special kind of clothes, special kind of educational programs. So these are all examples of niche markets. So if the company may focus on such kind of segments within the market, it might be a better solution rather than competing the whole market. Now, we need to talk about strategies, strategic plans, the management, the kind of different strategies we have, but at the same time, we also need to talk about to what extent our strategy fits the company itself. So here, the fit point of view, according to Porter, is this. Now, Porter believes that all of the firm's activities must be tailored to or fit the chosen strategy such that the firm's functional strategy supports its corporate and competitive strategy. So by this, we have to go like this. As we drop from top to the bottom of the company, all the strategies somehow all the strategies set within the companies must fit the overall corporate strategy. So we have the corporate strategies on top. So the department strategies should be translated in a way that can support the corporate strategies. Human resource management should come up with practices that helps these departments to achieve these strategies in a way to achieve the company's overall strategy. But at the same time, if the company somehow can manage to increase its efforts beyond the set or beyond the strategy set by the company, so that is what we mean by leveraging. According to Hamill, here, stretching, which means that you have like 10% strategy, increasing the sales by 10%. If the company, for some kind of reason or whatsoever kind of capabilities, was capable enough to stretch the strategy up to 15%, 20%, then why not? So by managing the resources we have in a company, developing a learning system in the organization, companies sometimes go beyond the set standards by the company itself, which is referred to as leveraging or stretching. So stretch and leveraging resources, supplementing what you have already and doing more with what you have. So with the resources we have in hand, we can go beyond the strategy itself, of course, for good reasons, okay, which can also help benefit the company itself. So why not? This is another strategy which can help the company, or it's a possible way to help the company be more effective and efficient at the same time. So this is quite effective as we achieve this strategy. But if we can somehow increase our capability to achieve more, then we're achieving effectiveness and efficiently in a better way, which is also one of the things that companies will try to do. Now, strategic human resource management. We've been talking about the strategies set by companies and the strategies set by different departments. Now we need to talk about human resource management and the strategy that this department is achieving. So we refer to human resource management or the strategic human resource management as here the linking of human resource management with the strategic goals. As you said before, human resource is a set of practices and functions. For example, selecting, recruiting, selecting, training, appraising, compensating. These are functions within human resource management. All these functions should help the company with its own strategic goals. So for example, if the company's strategy is to expand geographically, so they need people who can work in these different or in different countries. Now it would be the human resource management's duty to either choose, train, develop, and compensate those staff so that they can work in these places. So that is why we say strategic human resource management, because it is directly linked to the corporate objectives. So here it's a linking of human resource management with strategic goals and objectives in order to improve business performance and also develop organization cultures that foster innovation and flexibility. So this is human resource management strategy, or the strategic human resource management. Now this involves the following: formulating and executing the human resource systems, human resource policies and activities, which we will talk about in different sessions inshallah, that produce the employee competencies and behaviors that the company needs to achieve its strategic aims. In other words, the whole company will rely on human resource management. So if we're talking about different departments like marketing, this is production, this is financial, etc., human resource management with its own practices should support these different departments in order to achieve the company's objectives. So that is why we call this one strategic human resource management. So we have two different types of management, line management and staff management, which is relevant or related to human resource management. So linking company-wide and human resource strategies, here is an example. If you focus here, look here, when we talk about the company's competitive environment, this is the overall corporate objectives that is set by top management according to different factors. Of course, we talked about that before. We had the SWOT analysis in which we study the internal factors. Okay, here. These are the internal factors. And we have to study also the external factors. And according to the study, the company come up with the right strategy. So this right strategy is based on our own capabilities, strengths, and to what extent we can eliminate and reduce the weaknesses we have, and also utilizing the opportunities in the market, for example, and coping with the threats in the market. So by this we can come up with the right strategy. So studying this and this can help the company come up with its own strategic situation. So by this they would think about the best kind of strategy. After we study the external factor and the internal factor, now we know where we are currently, so we think about these strategies. For example, should we expand geographically according to this and this? So now we have some kind of information which can help us choose the right strategy. Should we cut cost? Should we diversify? So sometimes the competition in the market is very intensive, that the company itself cannot carry on business in this market. So maybe one good solution is you move to another market. So by this they come up with the right strategy. Once the strategy is chosen, human resource management or the human resource practices should be there. So the company's human resource strategies, which are tailored to achieve, to help the strategies set by the company. So what are the basic course of action according to the chosen strategy? For example, if we expand geographically, do we have to have employees from home country, the parent country, or from a third country, or from the host country? We will talk about that in another session. What kind of training sessions, training and development programs should we set? What kind of compensation system should be adopted? Okay, the kind of employees, capabilities, competencies we need to work in these places. So these are points that the human resource management should think about in their own strategies. So human resource will pursue to ensure that the recruiting, selecting, training, appraising, and compensating system, or the compensation system, support the company's strategic plan. Now we have a strategy here that is based on the internal and external study. Now comes the importance of human resource strategy. So by this, the company, the human resource management, will help the organization and performance. So the company now can move geographically. Human resource management has its own strategy to support the work. Now we will have special kind of staff. We will only choose the staff who are capable enough to work in such kind of or new environment. And the kind of training systems adopted by the company or the human resource management can also help the performance of those employees in a way to achieve the company's strategy. So that is why we say human strategy, human resource strategy should always be linked to the company's wide strategy. Now, when we talk about human resource strategies, we also have different challenges here. It can be new responsibilities, can be internal issues. Here are some of these challenges. So the first one is the kind of efforts by the entities and units within the company. So we need to improve the kind of efforts in different departments. The corporate productivity and performance improvement efforts. Human resource management should think about different issues. Maybe we need to adopt a special kind of training. Maybe the kind of employees we have in the home country may not really fit, were not fit to work in that country. So in order to increase such kind of efforts, we have to adopt another strategy. So these are issues or challenges that human resource management should think about. Also here, to what extent such kind of efforts should be helping the company. The expanded role of employees and the organization's performance efforts, which is also one of the tasks of the human resource management. And finally here, increase human resource team involvement in design of strategic plans. So as you said before, human resource teams cannot be isolated from the process of designing the strategic plans of the company, because they should be familiar with the strategies in order to come up with the right and supporting strategies by the Department of Human Resource Management. Now, creating the strategic human resource management system is as follows. We have the components. It goes as the following. The first one is the human resource professionals. In order to have a system, a very professional system for the human resource management, so that we come up with a strategic human resource management system, we must have professionals. Now those professionals are well-trained and expert people who work in the department. They should be familiar with different strategies adopted by human resource departments. They should be also capable enough to spot out the right employees with the right competencies that can have the or support the organizational performance. Another needed issue is the policies and practices. Now, companies here have different strategies. Human resource management will set its own strategies to support these company or corporate-wide objectives. So they must have lines and policies here. So when we talk about the policies and practices of human resource, we're talking about a course of actions or plans. And at the same time, we're talking about procedures that must be followed by the department in order to achieve or help or even support different departments. And finally, the employee behaviors. So here, and competencies. We cannot have a very good system without employees' competencies. We cannot have a strategic human resource management system without defined policies and practices. And at the same time, we need to have professional people to handle the last 2 points. So that is why, if we're talking about the human resource management system, we're talking about these 3 points. Professional people, well-trained expertise, and then we have to have standardized policies and practices, and at the same time, this will result in good behavior by employees. By this, we have strategic human resource system. Here's an example. As you see here, as you can see, the comparison of human resource practice in high and low performance companies. So if we're taking these factors, number of qualified applicants per position, which is the first step. These are among the initial procedures and practices by human resource management, which is selecting the right employee. Now we talk about 2 different possibilities. The first one is about low performance companies. The second is about high performance company. According to the study here, this is about 8.26 and low performance companies. While in high performance company, they choose, we're talking about qualified employees, 36.55, which means that the policies adopted by this company will only choose the best kind of employees according to the strategic human resource management system they have. So such kind of system is very effective. So they only choose the best. If you're talking about percentage hired based on validated selection tests, it's just about 4% in low performance company, while it is 29%, 67 in high performance companies. And as we drop with these factors, we notice that high performance companies always outrate the low performance company. That is because they're using a very effective and professional strategic human resource management system, as we talked about in the previous slide. So you can notice that this will definitely add up to the final performance of the company. So the performance of such kind of, in order to do this, we have different steps. First of all, formulating the business strategy. So here, what are the strategic goals of the business? Now, I cannot really talk about the human resource management strategies unless we discuss the strategies of the company itself. Then we identify workforce requirements. Now we have strategies. What kind of competencies we need to achieve these strategies? So this comes the second point. So employees' competencies and behavior that human resource needs to deliver to enable the business to reach its goals. Formulate human resource strategic policies and activities. So which human resource strategies and practices will produce the employees' competencies and behaviors. And finally, develop detailed human resource scorecard measures. Now, once we are sure about the kind of competencies, we need to evaluate such kind of competencies. Are they really helping the company achieve its own strategies or not? So the last one is about measuring the success and producing the required workforce competencies. So before we end, this is an example of simple value chain of a given company, Southwest Airlines. So in this example, you notice this is one of the companies. They have their own activities according to the nature of their business, which is airlines. So inbound logistics, the operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales and services of their own customers. Now, what should be done here is the support activities. Human resource management comes first. So they cannot actually achieve all the duties, tasks without the help of the human resource management, because it would be the part of the business that will provide the kind of employees with the right competencies and efforts to work in these departments in order to achieve the strategies of every department of this company. Then comes after the general administration, which support the human resource management, and of course technology used by the company. So here, the session topic, human resource metrics. The last point, we talked about how to measure the effectiveness of human resource or the strategy of the human resource management. So here, strategic human resource management and the human resource scorecard. Of course, here the way we measure the effectiveness of such kind of strategy is the percentage of employees who can code the company's strategy and vision. And when we talk about coding the company strategy, we're talking about the final output of those employees. The percentage and formal human resource plan, including recruitment, development, and succession, which is the training of managers. So these two things can help the company measure to what extent the strategic human resource management is going quite well. Another point is about the job analysis. the percentage of employees with updated job descriptions. So we have strategies. These strategies have requirements, and the employees that we need to have must have the right capabilities to achieve these strategies. So this can be translated in the job analysis, okay, which is information gathered about the job, as we will take inshallah in future sessions. So by this, dear students, we come to the end point. So we can conclude the following. We studied the steps in the strategic management process. We also take some examples of each of these company-wide and strategies and the competitive strategy that should be done by the company or formulated by the company itself, the overall company's objectives, and at the same time the strategic or the strategy-oriented human resource management system that is adopted by the company or by the company in order to achieve the corporate objective. At the end, dear students, you have an assignment attached to this session, which is assignment number 2. By this, we come to the end of this session. Thank you very much for listening. See you inshallah next session. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.